You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla. And this week we had Celiz on. Chris is a beatboxer and a multi-instrumentalist from New York who founded the Beatbox House, a collective based in Brooklyn. During this episode, we talked about his musical upbringing, emotion in music making, and how the Beatbox House started.
This episode with Chris is kind of our first foray into this new expanse of vocal music making that we've kind of been teasing lately. So I hope you enjoy this ride that we're kind of taking you on. It's a whole different world, so as always, any references made in the episode will be found in the show notes. As we mentioned in a previous episode, we are holding an ongoing giveaway of a personal sketch by Kayla and some stickers, and all you have to do for that is leave us a review on iTunes. It takes like a minute and really helps us out. Without any further ado, I hope you enjoy this week's episode with Chris Celiz.
Hello, everyone. We're here with Chris Celiz. He's our first beatboxer on Head Voice.
Yo.
Yeah, there he is. We're so happy to have him on. So I think we're just going to start out by bringing it back to the beginning and wanted to ask where you were born and raised.
Where I was born and raised. Well, first of all, again, my name is Chris Celiz. Hello, everyone. I'm 27 years old, and I was born in Manhasset, New York.
Hey! I'm from Northport, New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I grew up in Queens. I grew up in Queens, though. My parents
Very cool.
worked in Great Neck, which is why I was born in Manhasset.
And, gotcha.
Yeah. And then grew up in Flushing, actually, in Queens.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool. And then so as far as everything that we can tell, you started with music at a very early age. Is that something that your parents encouraged, and how did that kind of happen?
Well, sure, yeah. My parents have always been like super supportive of me making music.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think so at the time. I thought that's what they were just supposed to do. Like, your parents, you're supposed to do these things. And I kind of took it for granted when I was a kid. But I started playing clarinet when I was in 4th grade. And the reason I wanted to play clarinet was because there was this girl, her name was Lisa Gang.
Lisa, are you out there? If you're
Oh my
out
God,
there,
no.
this one's a shout out to you.
Out there. Don't do that. No, but I was like, wow, I want to play clarinet because she's cool too. So I actually wanted to play saxophone or trumpet more, but like I thought that playing clarinet would give me better chances. I was in 4th grade. What the hell do I know? But I actually enjoyed it so much because it was like something new to do, and I was like, Mom, can I have lessons? And she was like, sure. And then I started taking private lessons and studying classically, and I did that all the way till the end of college.
Cool.
Very
And
cool.
From your Instagrams and stuff, you're a multi-instrumentalist. So like, when did all the other instruments come into the equation?
Well, I started playing guitar in high school and beatboxing in high school too. Beatboxing it's interesting because when I started beatboxing, it was kind of an escape from like my formal education. You know, when it came to like, it was something that gave me my voice. So that was definitely in high school. And again, everything that I do revolves around women. It just does. I wanted to play guitar because I wanted to pick up girls because that's what a young man.
Yeah. Same, sadly.
Years, I was like, damn, how do I? Anyway. But then from there, I got into playing saxophone because my band teacher needed saxophones for his jazz band my senior year, and that's when I stumbled upon jazz, and I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever been created. I can like be myself and like play music that is not constrained by anything,
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and then and then I started playing a bunch of piano in college. I didn't really start playing piano until after I was like 21 years old. But now they're all just tools to make music, which is cool.
Yeah. Very cool. When did you so you said you started beatboxing in the high school time frame. When did you sort of realize like, okay, this is something that like I want to pursue? I
don't think it's anything that I wanted to pursue past the hobby. I just wanted to be the best at it. I just, it was something that I could just take anywhere and it was mine. It wasn't anybody else's,
Yeah.
Like you could give a guitar to someone, you can give a bass to someone or a clarinet to someone and they can play it, but nobody can play my voice.
Yeah.
How did you discover beatboxing initially?
Oh my God, internet.
Shout out to the internet.
Are you a
Well,
millennial?
actually, my first thing with beatboxing was encounter with beatboxing was when I was about like 5 or 6, and I was watching Police Academy with my dad, and like Michael Winslow was doing the Jimi Hendrix. Like the power goes out in the scene, and then he's like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" And he does like the Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner. I was like, "What? You could do that with your mouth?" And he was doing all these like sirens and like all these weird sound effects. I was like, "Whoa, that's so cool! Someone can do that." I want to do that one day, but then I didn't like take it seriously or anything until file sharing. So things like Napster and then Kazaa and LimeWire. And I was like, I have access to any kind of music that I want. Yeah, I don't have to buy it. So
The
cool.
best.
Yeah. And so I stumbled upon this track called The Four Elements by Razel and Kenny Muhammad. And it was those two beatboxers versus two DJs. It was like DJ Scribble and then somebody else. And I didn't know what the difference was. And at that point, between like the DJing and the beatboxing, I was like, this is the craziest shit ever. So I was like, I gotta find more of this. So I went on Yahoo search. I don't think I was Googling. I was Yahoo searching. And I put in human beatbox. And then humanbeatbox.com came up. And Gavin Tite, who was the moderator at the time, he just offered free beatbox lessons. I was like, oh, this is easy. This is how I'll learn. And then I just watched each video and I just was hooked. I was like, oh my God, this is the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I just didn't stop. I just never stopped. Really, is what happened.
You kind of mentioned a couple people or videos that were kind of like informed you as a beatboxer. Are there any other people or influences that you look to inspire your own style?
Where do I start? Like Chance the Rapper, John Mayer, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and Michael Brecker. I don't know. Like my palette is very wide. Dilla, Flying Lotus, Bobby McFerrin. I don't know. There's so many. I'm always fascinated by individuals who just get their voice to shine and like are about storytelling at a very like high level, I guess is the best way.
Totally.
And by high level, I mean like they're able to communicate their intention. So like poets are too, Anis Mushkandi and like Saul Williams and like just anyone who's really serious about communicating their narrative.
Yeah.
Totally.
Is who has like a big influence on me.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like for you, when did you kind of start to figure out what it is you wanted to communicate? Because I think there's so many beatboxers out there, and I think that you've kind of, as far as I can tell, started to kind of craft a thing that you do. When did that kind of start happening for you?
Definitely last year when more than a year and a half ago when I broke up with my girlfriend. I was like, damn, there was just so much emotional energy that was in that I didn't know what to do with, and it's something that I never really like shared with people. I thought the only place to like share that appropriately was like either like if I was going to therapy or like or in like a church group, because I grew up in the church back in the day, you know. And but I was like, I remember coming home one day just mad, and I was like upset because I just got into a fight because my girlfriend and I at the time, like, we were together for 6 years, and then we were figuring out, oh, how do we like split up our stuff and move out? And I saw her, we got into a thing, and I got home and I was like to my friend Gene, who's also another beatboxer who's in my house. I was like, bro, I need to record this song right now because there's like so much going on, and like I wanted to capture that emotional energy, and I captured that and then put it on the YouTubes, and it was the first song that people were like, whoa, like that was so different from anything you've ever done, because it just told the story of where I was at.
We should take it slow, it's not easy to meet you. I'm falling for you fast like a cloud machine. gonna take my time. I'm not playing it cool. I'm falling for you fast, for love too soon.
Sure, she got really upset when I released it, but like, whatever. It wasn't, and it was just like, look, I miss you. I do, and I wish we weren't going through this. And that's essentially the story that I got to tell, and that's where I realized that that's what is gonna have me connect with people.
Yeah.
And what I want, and that's what I want to be putting out there, just
Right.
like creating a space for people to really like connect over, not so much like be impressive. I
Right.
mean, like you practice and stuff and be impressive, but like there's more to making music than just being impressive, I think.
Right. No, totally. And I think it's really interesting that you're saying this, because I would imagine it would be difficult to create an emotional connection through beatboxing, but I have no background in beatboxing, so I don't really know what that's like. I've come more from a vocalist background, so I can see
Sure.
how it's like easier to, or at least I can visualize how to like latch onto a certain emotion and convey it. But for you, how do you express, like through your sounds, how do you express the emotion?
Definitely, I mean, just a lot of dynamics and then understanding what my intention is when I'm making a song.
Mm-hmm. And like being in a certain headspace, sort of.
Yeah, and then just being present to that.
Right.
And then whether it's like, oh, this is like a really happy vibe. And a lot of times I'll read the room, because I like to improvise a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll read the room and see what kind of vibe. Like if it's like a party thing, I don't want to bring it down. Like you'd see that, like that's appropriate.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
You know, if it's more of like a chill thing, like a So Far Sounds, or like people are really there to listen in on what's behind like the narrative of whatever the artist is doing, then I'll slow things down and do more singing with the beatboxing, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's how.
Yeah. I'd imagine part of that too is like that you've kind of just worked a long time to develop your kit and like a variety of sounds to be able to, fill those different lanes of sound when appropriate. Is there kind of a way that you go about developing new stuff, or is it just a natural thing that happens?
I just think it's just being intentional about what it is that I want to make, and a lot of it is emotionally charged. And then sitting down and then having an idea and then looping that over and over, just
Yeah.
kind of to solidify what vibe it is that I'm trying to create with the song.
Right.
And that's just like songwriting in general.
Right.
Because that's what I've found is like beatboxing is now just another tool that I have, whether it's like guitar or whatever, to convey the message that I'm trying to put out with whatever song it is. Whether it's like, oh wow, it's snowing outside, I'm so much fun, like that, or like I miss you, come back, or let's party. I don't know, like
Yeah.
all the different
Yeah.
feelings. So we actually also wanted to talk about the Beatbox House, because that is your baby.
that is my baby.
Can you kind of just explain the origin story, where that came from and what it is for anyone who
So
doesn't know what it is?
the Beatbox House is a collective of world champion beatboxers who all live in the same house in Brooklyn, New York.
Hey.
And we all used to be competitors against one another in the American battle scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then, over the years, because I had a house that everyone would come to, we grew really close because I wanted to just have a space where people could like be themselves and feel free to just feel safe, And it just so happened my friends like were actually like beatboxers, And so we just spent so much time together that we started trading ideas, and then when we grew exponentially at that point, then we went to world championships, and then, And we did Grand Beatbox Battle. Neil came in second in the world, and Kayla won first, and in the women's category, and then Gene won Grand Beatbox Battle. And it's like our crew is taking home all these big battles, and then we were like, wow, this is so cool. And then we just kept winning. And at some point we were like, okay, like what do we do now? So we're like, let's make music.
Yeah.
And then move in with each other for real. So this is like the third iteration of like the actual house, and this is the first time that everyone actually has their own room, which is nice because everyone just used to sleep on the couch. But
was the idea always to have a kind of spirit of collaboration, or is that more born out of, like you were talking about, the successes in the battle scene and stuff?
Ooh, I don't know if there was an intention to even like be a group from the beginning. It was just a space that we had, and like all my homies, we would just be there, and it happened organically. And we realized like, hey, maybe we should try doing this together. So it wasn't ever an actual intention until someone was like, maybe we should try and actually do this together.
Yeah.
And then we realized, whoa, we like make music together. This is cool.
Yeah, like, so due to the like collective nature of it and stuff, there's so many different iterations of the house that you can watch on YouTube. Like, we were just watching an improv thing that you did with Kayla, which is dope. And then, there's all 5 of you doing stuff. The nature of a collective is that it's undefined, but how do you kind of define what it's come to be?
Well, over the years, we've kind of, as it stands right now, like there are 5 members in the house. Kayla's actually not a part of the house anymore. Because of our artistic differences and differences of like vision for how we want to go about creating our business in general, right? What we're doing right now in this present day is like seeing how we can all, like 5 of us, create songs that are the 5 of us. That's kind of our next step, because what we used to do is just and we still do this with shows, we show up and then we figure it out on stage.
Yeah.
And we trust our ability that much that we can get on stage and like we did a show on Tuesday, an hour and 45 minutes, and we made it up the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And we capture the live vibe, and that's really impressive. Our next challenge is to see how we can do that on a record and like communicate that like same energy that's also polished and looks cool to an audience,
Yeah. Speaking of an audience, I was just thinking about how, I think beatboxing is kind of a misrepresented or underrated art form. And I'm sure, I would imagine that you guys are kind of educating the public on what is capable with beatboxing and
100%.
what this art form can be. So like, what have you seen in performing, just solo work or with the Beatbox House, any like influence on the audience in that way?
Sure. The one compliment or the one thing that people say to us right at, once we're finished doing our thing, they're like, how doesn't anyone know about this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with actually things that have nothing to do with beatboxing and with like our business prowess and how we're marketing and how we tell people about what it is that we're doing. And that's a whole new learning curve for us,
Right.
Because I was like, oh man, I just got into this because I wanted to beatbox. I didn't know shit about business, like, and that it's cool because, I think all of our skill sets like complement one another. Like I went to school to be a teacher, and I have that organizational skill, and I taught in public school for like 3-4 years. I'm a lot older than I look. Let me tell you something. But most people have no idea that it's a thing, and when people hear beatboxing, they're like, no way.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing that you do, and then we do it. They're like,
Right.
oh, well, fuck.
Well, that was impressive.
Yeah, I didn't know it was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides just like doing the thing and then being like, oh, cool. Like what are the ways that you try to like get past those preconceived notions of what people think about beatboxing?
just like how hard we kill it on stage. No, just seriously, because it's like a lot of the times when people think of beatboxing, it's like a novel thing. It's like, wow, that's like a cool party trick that you can do. But I know for a fact that when we step on stage, like that's not how we go about it. We're really about catering to the vibe of whatever party we're at, and then like also being really funny and charming and entertaining when we're on stage. That's definitely a part of it, but not hokey,
Right.
I think that because it's our intention. It's like we don't want to be putting out there that it's a joke what we're doing, because this is like our lives. It's not a joke,
right?
And we're still gonna have a really good time and party, because we're trying to elevate what it is to even do this art form,
Yeah.
So I think we just kill it really, really hard.
Yeah.
So a thing I think too with beatboxing is that, and I guess lots of different art forms, is people are scared or confused by what they don't understand, because beatboxing kind of came out of hip hop, but you can do so many different genres of music. Because your roles can be different, right? Like you were talking about how at So Far you can do like more of a singy thing, or you could back up a rapper, or you could make a party dance thing.
Right.
Like, do you see yourselves as any one thing, or do you see yourselves as all of those things?
I just think from our experience, like we can be in all of those spaces. Because first of all, like people are like, oh, we need a beatboxer. They don't even know what the fuck we do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to take this thing that doesn't really fit in anywhere.
Right.
That people don't really even know about, and just see what happens. So we're so used to being in situations where, I don't know, we're just going to figure it out. That like, I feel at this point we can do any kind of gig and like kill it. Whether it's like an acoustic show, or like we're playing in front of 10,000 people, or it's a TV thing, it doesn't matter. Because at the I think it also comes from being shafted so many times, like being in situations where we're like, I didn't even like, just like, oh, this is like a corporate gig, and like there are like 70-year-old people walking around who have no interest in what I'm doing, and they're like 5 people, and they're like, what's happening? How do you work with that? We just do it. There's no. So I think we're like super versatile, and it's cool because we don't. It's just us. We take ourselves, and then and then we show up, and then we figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So Andrew Kim from Backtrack is actually the one who put us in touch with you.
Oh, tight, cool.
And
love Andrew.
Yeah, he's awesome, and and I think that you've subbed for his group. Is that true?
100%.
What is your take from quote unquote the outside on kind of the acapella scene? Because there's obviously a lot of things that are shared in the medium.
Oh man. No, why did you ask me this question? Oh shit, people are gonna hate me after this interview.
No, it's good. Say whatever you want.
Ah, Jesus Christ. I just think a lot of it can be like empty. It's like a shell of like, it's all, you're doing other people's songs, and this isn't all a cappella. Just some of the stuff that I see sometimes, it's like, it's kind of a shell, like you learn your parts and everyone does their part perfectly, and then you have your choreography and like, woohoo, we've done our song. And for me, I'm like, what is your story? What are you trying to say? Is this just to like get put on, or is it for me, I want to see things that are going to be innovative with the voice too, because I think there's so much more than just singing a straight tone voice, or like mixing a ooh and a ah, and I'm interested, and and to be very honest, I haven't delved very far into the acapella stuff, so I don't.
Totally cool.
And I'm not gonna lie, I do love pentatonics. They're incredible. And at the same time, I'm like, oh man, like their arranging is incredible. Whoever, I think it's Ben Bram who does their arranging.
Yep.
Amazing. Great. Just a lot of the other stuff I feel like is trying to be that. And to me, that's not, I'm like, oh man, I want to hear things that are different from that.
Yeah.
Because they're doing that. So
Right.
someone else do your own thing. Like, what's your style about? Maybe, and I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Go ahead.
Something that's interesting to me is that, you just talked about how you did an hour 45, all off the top of the dome, so to speak, and
Sure.
and acapella kind of by nature, for the most part, excepting like the Bobby McFerrins and the circle singer type people, it's a lot of pre-thought out, like the arrangement's done. There's not a lot of room for that freedom. So like when you've like sub with like Backtrack, for instance, like what is that? How do you adjust, and how does that feel different to you than what you do?
Well, it's just I imagine that like I pull on my like music school training for that. In that like, oh, it's like I'm subbing for on a gig, and like I'm a drummer, and I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna learn my part, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then I do my part, and then I leave. I'm not like heavily invested in the project like I am with like Beatbox House. Like for example, like Beatbox House is my life. Like that's my like legacy on what I'm gonna leave on this earth. A lot of musicians approach gigs that way. It's almost like when you have someone like, I don't know, Lady Gaga versus like Foo Fighters, right? So Lady Gaga will go up, or let's even say Bruno Mars, right? He'll go up and then he'll sing, but every time he'll have like different musicians who just learn their parts, and then you can switch them in and out. Foo Fighter, like that's a set band who has spent time together, has this camaraderie, and like they play together all the time. So there's a specific vibe that's brought, as opposed to like just learning a part and they just serve different functions. I like one better than the other, but they're different.
Right. And so that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like in a cappella, at least, the role that the percussionist plays is a vocal percussionist, and in the beatbox world, it's completely different from the role of a beatboxer. And we haven't seen too many groups that kind of combine that. I don't know if you know who the Boxettes were, but they were an older a cappella group, but they had Bellatrix as their beatboxer.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like bridging the two worlds, which is really cool to see. Have you ever thought about incorporating more vocals into your beatboxing work, or in the Beatbox House?
100%. I think, and that's what we're tackling now, because a lot of our stuff is texture and like sound, or just, it's so experimental, because we're always trying to push and see like what you can create. And I think in exploring that, we've also not spent a lot of time just training our voices, period. Right. Everyone has a good ear, but we don't have trained voices. Other than like Gene, and like I've just recently taken it upon in the past year to start taking my voice seriously, because I have a very good ear, but I have no control over my singing voice. I don't even know what my singing voice is for real yet, and that's an interesting journey on its own. And so we're exploring what that looks like for everyone, Go ahead.
Something that I've noticed just like watching a lot of beatbox videos is like that a lot of people who are into the scene like are really about it being like as authentic as possible, like very minimal effects. Like a lot of people just want to see compression and EQ and like that's it or whatever.
100%.
And so again, us coming from like the acapella thing, it's very pretty restrictive traditionally in terms of you can't incorporate instruments, but I don't think that you really have any qualms about doing that. So like how do you feel that the beatbox community reacts to something when you're playing guitar or keys with like a beatboxing thing? Is that still beatboxing, or does that become something else? Or
well, it's just beatboxing with something else.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh wow, he can do two things, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And everyone, if you like, first of all, if you're getting into beatboxing in the first place and like taking it seriously, you got to be pretty weird. Just like, let's be honest, you got to be a weird person. Be like, oh, I just want to do this. And so it's pretty open with like what it is that you can try things with, because it's just super experimental from the jump.
Yeah.
So people embrace that.
Right.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that you all were kind of entering the recorded music sphere a little bit.
Yes.
With Gene's album that came out, I don't know if it was this year or last year. it was like there were elements of beatboxing in there, but there's like a lot of, you know, more traditional instrumental stuff in there as well. How are you, what's kind of your philosophy going forward in terms of both what instruments or not that you're using, and like, you know, keeping that free improvised energy into something that's inherently recorded and there's a period at the end of that sentence, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's just the intention again, that you know, like, if my thing is, if it sounds good, then whatever.
Exactly.
Like, if you're making a composition and you want to, like, fucking Timberland does that. If you really listen to all his beats, he's like, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's like, you just, if you listen, like, oh, he's like putting all these, you know, mouth noise things in it, like, because it's there, and it's just like, that's his signature thing.
Yeah.
You know who was great at doing that too? Michael Jackson. Oh my god.
Yeah.
All of his beats he beatboxed for all compositions, like, he beatboxed first and then he put it on the record. There's a great YouTube clip about it. You should put it in the podcast.
Beat It, I think. On Oprah, or something.
He's like, but like,
it's awesome.
What? Like, that's great. Like, that's so dope. But it's essentially like, if you can communicate your idea and it sound good, like, you could use a spoon for all I care. I don't care. Like, just do that. I just don't like the idea of pigeonholing. Like, humans are funny because we like to categorize everything. Like, this is the way it has to be. No, it doesn't. You don't have to do that. I think that's silly, because then you're already limited to what you can do in that sphere of things, you know. So for me, if it sounds good and like you're happy with that, whatever it is you made and you put out in the world and people are vibing with that, that's dope. Period.
We're into that for sure.
Love that. Love that. So unfortunately, we're actually nearing the end of our episode today. No. But we like to ask a couple wrap-up questions, and the first one is, what trends in the beatboxing sphere are you excited by?
Trends. I don't know. These new kids are coming up with some just really crazy techniques. And what's cool is that a lot of it is taking a turn towards songwriting. Which is awesome. You know, you have people like Shogo and Big Man and like Codfish who are like, you know, and Gene was kind of the person who broke into the scene and was like, I'm gonna, like, with the new school guys anyway, just like, I'm gonna sing and then create a whole composition, which is really coming from Bobby McFerrin and stuff, you know. Well, everyone, you know, we're taking, like, in order to elevate, like, it needs to be more than just battles, and people are starting to get bored with just trying to go really fast, so they're like, how can I start actually communicating what I'm about? So that's exciting. That's super cool, because to use each sound with intention, you know, and having those speak, well, and just whatever it is, speak the message of whatever it is you're trying to create through that. You know, so that's super exciting, I think. And you know, there's a lot of the kids want a lot of like battle stuff to happen too. Just and there's like a whole internet community, like internet battle community that can actually get kind of savage. They're all these teenage guys just going like, "Oh, you suck, man." And they all want to focus on like lip roll stuff, or like going really, really fast and stuff. So they're like two, and I think those worlds are now merging. So that's exciting to see.
Totally. And then the last question is just, what's next on the plate for you in 2018 and beyond?
Man, we just like, number one, we want to do a ton more workshops, because you know, like the demographic of people who are listening to our stuff are from the ages of like 16 to like 16, like 24, 25, and obviously we have older people, but like doing more workshops, starting a school.
Oh,
cool.
Maybe
that's cool.
Well, here in New York, fingers crossed. What else? Definitely doing our first like real tour, whether either like a European or like a North America is like a big stable. And then putting out our first project, like full on, like produced and like mixed and mastered and everything, with like a music video series and all that, for sure. And then like working with like a lot of top liners, like I want to work with like Kendrick or Rihanna or like Chance. I want to work with Chance. Nobody else has to, but I will. Because we are that versatile. We can work with so many different kinds of people. Yeah. We just want to be out there. And then not just for the sake of showing people, but really let's like, hey, like this is a thing, you know? And becoming really the first ones to make this mainstream. Yeah. That's on the docket for sure.
Cool. Lofty goal, but I think you guys can do it.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Chris. It was a pleasure talking to you. And we will be having some more members of the house coming on the show in the coming weeks and months. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And we hope you join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Woo! Thanks for having me, guys.
Without you.